Alright, so here's what happened. My camera overheated, and about 10 minutes into my Dunkirk review, it just turned itself off. Which is probably one of the more tangible evidence is that God exists, that proves that God exists, and clearly he hates me. Ugh. So let's do this again. Do I need my glasses here? No, I honestly don't. Dunkirk! Let's talk about Christopher Nolan first, because he's always a fun topic to talk about. So, whether you think he's overrated or not, and because I know plenty of people who think he is overrated, Christopher Nolan has been one of the most exciting filmmakers to have blown up in popularity in the 2000s. That's a totally easy thing to say. It's, I think everybody at least agrees with that. Even if you think he's overrated, whenever he makes a film and whenever it comes out, everybody always talks about it. And usually it's not just like a surface level of, conversations about what the film is about. No, we really get deeply into it. And even the people who hate Christopher Nolan really get deeply into his movies to find the things that they hate. Because, when he's not challenging you with a concept that's intensely thought out and mentally provoking like Inception, he's at least like challenging and innovating an entire genre, kind of paving a way for future films to be made in that genre in a very different way, like The Dark Knight. And admittedly, sometimes his imagination and his ideas and his, concepts kind of goes overboard once in a while, like Interstellar. But even when he's going overboard like that, he's always finding a way to make it all seem so exciting and interesting and so larger than life. And everything just seems... It never feels like he never feels like he's making a film on a surface level. He's clearly thinking everything out. He's clearly intertwining everything. And even when it seems silly, it always feels intensely intellectually planned out. And that's why I'm usually really impressed with him. Dunkirk is not like any of the three movies that I mentioned right now. There's nothing spectacular in this movie in a conceptual way. Nothing is, serialized. Nothing is romanticized. If anything, it feels more like Nolan kind stepping back from the things that he's been making for the last decade, and he's kind of going back to his roots when it comes to more primal storytelling. And more raw filmmaking, like Memento or Insomnia, or even The Following, and while kind of keeping that technical bravado that exists within the films like The Prestige or Inception. And I'll talk about that just a bit more later, but I kind of need to explain how this film works in the storytelling aspect, because if you don't know how this film works, how this film is trying to portray its story, I'll never be able to explain to you thoroughly why this film is so exciting as it is. So, the film is set in three different places. It's set at Dunkirk Beach, where all the soldiers are, and the destroyers are constantly coming to the beach, but they're always destroyed by German planes. And then there's the second setting, on a boat, where this old guy and his son and this little kid from the neighborhood is going to Dunkirk Beach to save some of the soldiers, because clearly the destroyers aren't doing shit. And then there's the setting of in the sky, where there are these two pilots trying to get to Dunkirk Beach. I'm not sure why they were going there. Like, they were running low on fuel, and they were trying to get there to get more fuel, but on the way they like gun down German planes, which kind of intertwines with the other two settings by helping the people on the boat and at Dunkirk Beach. So that's how the settings work. There are three settings, and I'll get to the nitty-gritty of those three settings and how it all kind of intertwines together later on. I really kind of want to go through the technical aspects of the movie first, or at least the portrayal of it all. This movie, although it has like great individual acting moments here and there, it's not really an actor's film, and I'll explain that later, but I do want to get into the individual great performances here. Kenneth Branagh, I mean, It's fucking Kenneth Branagh. At this point, he's not going to give you a bad performance. Even if he half-asses it, he's going to give you at least 3/4 of what he showed you in, like, Henry V or Hamlet, which is basically an Oscar-worthy performance that nobody's going to give a shit about, you know? It's solid, it's grounded, it's commanding. Even though he's stern and calculated, there's still humanity coming from his character and his performance. So, yeah. I mean, he's always been great, so, you know, I'm kind of talking about the obvious here. Then there's Mark Rylance, who might be giving the best performance in the whole movie. Mostly because his character, he plays the father, the old guy, who's on the boat. He's steering the boat. And the thing is, every actor who's on the boat gets the most time to actually act, because there's not much carnage going on the setting of the boat. There's no intense action scenes happening. It's mostly about these characters. It's that setting is used for the film to really breathe for a moment and really let these actors have some room to improvise and actually give out some emotions besides fear and panic. And although he's giving a good performance for the same reasons that Kenneth Branagh is giving a good performance in this movie, because he has more room to breathe, his performance does have more flexibility. It has more, it's more complex. It's much more, there are more layers to it. So just because of the setting, his performance kind of has a stronger edge than Kenneth Branagh's performance. But still, I'm not saying that Kenneth Branagh's performance was terrible. I'm not saying that his placement in the film was wrong. It's just that Mark Rylance had an advantage here. So his performance is easily the best. But when it comes to the acting in this movie, everybody's asking the same question. Is Harry Styles good in this movie? I'll say this. If you never knew that he was in One Direction, if you never knew that he had this big solo career as a solo musician as well, and I did listen to that album. It's not that good. But Sign of the Times is easily one of the best pop songs that's come out this year, and I'm gonna stick with that. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I hated One Direction when they first came out, but that Sign of the Times song, that's a fucking jam. Here's the, if you never knew that he was already this millionaire, this admittedly kind of this modern day sex symbol for teenagers, you would have thought that this guy was one of the most exciting newcomers in films today, because his performance here, right next to Mark Rylance's performance, is probably the best, and it's easily the best performance out of all the soldiers. Whenever he's like supposed to be deranged with fear, we fucking believe it. Whenever he needs to be somber in the aftermath of the war with guilt, we believe it. There's so much humanity coming from his performance as an individual. But I think the most exciting thing about this performance is that while watching it, at a certain point, you kind of forget that it's Harry Styles. Because before I watched the movie, I just thought no matter how good his performance was going to be, it's still Harry Styles. It's gonna be distracting because we all know who he is. He's this big star, and whenever a big star plays a somewhat smaller role in the movie, it's kind of distracting. The same thing that I talked about with Lily Collins playing the side character in Okja. But here, his performance is so good that you really forgive everything about his celebrity. Everything about his celebrity that might be distracting from the movie. He just fits so perfectly, and I was so surprised. And he's easily the most impressive performance. He's easily the most surprising performance in the whole film. And his performance really kind of encapsulates what the film is trying to portray when it comes to the soldiers, when it comes to the point of view of the soldiers. And I'll get to that right now. The portrayal of the war in this movie is kind of the tension and the way it builds. It kind of has the same flow as Mad Max Fury Road, as in this movie is fucking relentless. It's within the first 2 minutes, maybe less, gunshots are heard. People start to die. People start running away. Bombs start to fall. People are blown up. Destroyers start to sink. There are planes start to shoot each other, and planes just fall into the sea. People are just running away, screaming and yelling for help. The film just throws you in battle right away. And maybe they're outside of 2 scenes where you get to, like, genuinely breathe for a moment and kind of, like, contemplate on what's been going on. The movie never lets you go. It's so thrilling because of the minimal intense music, because of the incredible, incredible sound design and the sound effects. And like I said, that's what I was talking about earlier. Although the film there's nothing like conceptually brilliant about it, but Christopher Nolan is still taking that technical brilliance that he showed off in The Prestige or Inception or Interstellar. He's taking that sound, because those films had amazing sound design too. So in this film, he's kind of utilizing that same skill that he's been building up for such a long time to portray this insanely tense and gripping portrayal of what war is like. And another reason why why the war and the battle scenes seem so real is because of the acting. And there's a reason why I say the film's not really an actor's movie. It's because there's really no time to act. And that's why Mark Rylance's performance is better than Kenneth Branagh's performance. And there's a reason why the setting of the boat is where the most acting is done. It has the least amount of battle scenes, so there's more time to breathe. On the other 2 settings, on the beach and the plane, there's no time for you to breathe. It's just carnage after carnage after carnage. Soldiers being blown up. They're dying, they're screaming, they're yelling for help. They die drowning after like a intense blood-curdling scream. And it's such an intensely authentic and realistic portrayal of how soldiers would act in a war zone and in battle. Because usually in every World War II movie or in any war movie, there's that one guy, that one, usually it's not the main character, but there's that one side character who goes, "No, you guys get back to the boat or the chopper or the whatever, that's the safe place. I'll protect you guys. I'll stay here and shoot down as many of these Nazis or these bad guys, the guys on the other side. I'll save you guys. I'll sacrifice myself. I'll be the hero." There's always that one overly dramatic character in every war movie, but here, everybody wants to live. Nobody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to survive. Even if that means that they need to kill somebody else in order to survive on their side. And they're selfish, they're inhuman, but it makes sense. By making them so inhuman, the film ironically portrays them in a very human way. And again, it's just an extremely realistic portrayal of war, both morally and humanity-wise, but also on a spectacle level. It feels tense, it feels scary, it feels like a place that you do not want to be in. It doesn't feel romanticized, and that's what makes this film so good. And again, like I said, that does kind of leave a little bit to be desired when it comes to character when it comes to the character development, because they don't really give you much time to really invest yourself into these characters, because they don't really have a personality. You're kind of watching them as a group. It's a group of soldiers. It's the group mentality. You're experiencing the emotion and not the individual characters' life stories and whatnot. But I feel like the film is not trying to do that. It's not trying to give you these individual characters. It's trying to give you the overall feeling. Because if they emphasize certain individual characters by giving them like intensely distinct personalities, then that would be kind of like trivializing the rest of the soldiers and the rest of the people who were in this war. The film is trying to portray the group and these mobs of soldiers and people who were experiencing this terror. And if that was what the film was going for, I think the film succeeds. Now, we need to get into the way the story is told. And here's the thing. This is where I'm going to go into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, you shouldn't really watch the review from here on out. So here's the thing. The story is... This is how the story is told. Each setting starts off at a different point in time in the week of this portrayal, of this intensely realistic portrayal of human carnage. The beach starts off a week before the ending of the film. The boat starts off a day before the ending of the film, and the setting with the plane and Tom Hardy as a pilot, that starts off an hour before the ending of the film. So it starts off at different points in time, and they just kind of intertwine those three time points, time stamps, or whatever, and they try to intertwine it and make it flow naturally in a narrative sense. Now, that means that the narrative constantly shifts, and it foreshadows and explains certain things by intertwining certain scenes together that happens maybe in reverse. So maybe it'll show something that's happening in the future, and then show you something that happened in the past to explain why that character got to that point in the future. And I think this is where the film slightly falters. There are certain moments where it does get kind of clumsy. Although it's a clever way to tell a story, it does get clumsy a few times. But I feel like this proves to be effective overall. The pros are much stronger than the cons here, for three reasons. One of them really is kind of... It really comes down to the character portrayal. There's this one character who's kind of this hypocritical, shell-shocked soldier. And by changing the sequences, by showing what he's like after the shell shock, and then showing him before the shell shocking happened, before the shell shock inducing event happened, by switching the sequences, somehow it emphasizes his hypocrisy of not wanting to go back and help people, and not wanting to save people, and just, becoming this really self-centered person who just wants to survive. He doesn't want to help anybody. He just wants to get back home. And by, changing the sequences, somehow it really emphasizes that, because I guess it's more memorable. And because it stands out more compared to most of the character arcs that happen in other movies. The second reason why this intertwining of three different points in time works so well is because it gives Christopher Nolan, or at least the editor of this movie, to have a fucking field day when it comes to editing. Like, each setting intertwines with each other with some of the best editing that I've seen in a while, because this is how it works. So in one scene, a boat is hit by a torpedo missile from a submarine, I guess, and in a different point in time, another boat starts to sink. Or maybe, like, somebody sleeps on a boat in one point in time, and in another point in time, somebody wakes up on the beach. So by intertwining very similar imagery or very similar events, the film flows naturally most of the time. And it's such a great idea, it's such a great example of storytelling through editing. It's the film Christopher Nolan always understood that editing is not simply, putting two scenes together. You can put two scenes together to emphasize emotion, or emphasize an event, or making it just visually interesting. And by connecting two similar events, or two similar images from two different time points, and kind of playing with the flow of the narrative, it makes the film feel so disorienting. But at the same time, you understand what's going on. And the reason I'm saying that the disorienting feeling as a positive thing is because it fits the portrayal of what it's trying to do with its portrayal of war. The film is trying to feel like a really authentic portrayal of war, which I'm just gonna assume if you're actually in the shit, it's gonna be disorienting as fuck. So because these time points kind of intertwine with each other not in a confusing way, but in a somewhat complicated way, it makes you feel as disoriented as much as the soldiers in the battlefield, or at least as much as the people who are in the film. It adds to the disorienting and the really confusing and emotionally turbulent mood of the film and the war itself. It adds to the atmosphere of the confusion and the fear and the disorientation, and I think that's why it really works. And this is where I really want to praise Christopher Nolan, because even when it comes to Memento, the reason the film was edited that way, and the reason the film was made that way, was because it was trying to portray a somewhat authentic portrayal of a person with short-term memory loss. And so here, this way of storytelling doesn't feel gimmicky because there's a point to it. He's trying to portray a disorienting portrayal of war through this editing and through this way of storytelling and through this narrative. So, again, it's just a huge pro for this guy. I mean, outside of the characters on the boat, like I said, there's not much individual personality going on throughout the film, but, you know, it's still good. Like, on a spectacle level, it still has a gut-punching pace. It's got a clever idea that doesn't feel gimmicky at all. It's beyond relentless, and it doesn't feel redundant at all. It's taking a very tired idea for films. You know, World War II, there's plenty of World War II movies out there, but by using all of these new ideas, and using this really relentless idea portrayal, it actually feels new. It feels important. It feels needed. And if anything, it's one hell of a spectacle. So I feel like if you're a Christopher Nolan fan, I'm not really, you know, you're probably gonna watch it even if I said it was terrible. So, but if you're kind of tired of what Christopher Nolan's been doing these days, this is one of those movies that's gonna surprise you. So yeah, go and watch it. It's really good. Dunkirk. Blah, blah, blah. Bye.